Ladies and gentlemen, our referee has called a stop to this contest, declaring the winner by knockout and new MMA show! Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting round of and new MMA show. I'm your host, Michael Hansen, and I do all kinds of epic things with microphones because I'm a ring announcer and cage announcer, and I'm joined this week, as I always am, by my two friends who bring MMA punditry to new heights. Introducing to you first, from New York, Mark Priaulx. What's up, buddy?
What's up, boys? How we doing? Rocking the Yankee hat this week to try to bring us some luck, because after being the best team in baseball all year long, we suddenly stink. So I figure, you know, if some Yankees see me wear the hat on this enormously popular show, they'll get a little motivated and things will get fixed. So
very nice.
Let's go Mets.
Oh, Christ.
This show is about to break up. Oh my God. And the man who just spoke, introducing from Florida, La Pesadilla de Nicaraguense, Omar Artola. What's up, buddy?
What is going on? I am dealing with a little hurt shin here. I was training today, and dude checked my kick real fucking good, and I am paying for it. Oof. So getting your shin checked, it works. It works, 100%.
Did it hurt him as well, though?
I fucking doubt it. I really fucking doubt it.
Well, I have two bits of news on the home front here. First thing, I got stung by a bee for the first time in about 20, 25 years, which was a fantastic experience yesterday.
Let me ask you a question. Did it hurt more than you had imagined it would in your head?
The next thing I was going to say was, I could not believe how much it hurts.
Dude, yes. So
when you get stung.
Same as you. I got stung last summer for the first time in like 20 years. And in my head, I had turned like a beast. I had been stung numerous times as a kid. I had turned it into like, yeah, it doesn't really hurt. Like if my kid had gotten stung by a bee, I literally would have been like, all right, dude, like you're fine, like deal with it. That shit hurts so much more than I thought I remembered it hurting. I couldn't believe how much it hurt.
Right. I didn't even see this bee coming. I just came out of nowhere. I felt it on the back of my arm. I didn't even see a bee flying around me. Out of nowhere, I thought somebody stabbed me in the arm with a needle.
Yes.
With a fucking hypodermic needle. And I just I scream, first of all. I scream bloody murder. I'm like, ow! And I just see this little fucking honeybee fly away, or whatever kind of bee it was. Anyway, because I hadn't been stung in so long, I was like, am I alert? And we had company over, and they were all like, oh, shit. They were like, are you allergic? And I was like, I don't know. I haven't been stung since I was like 7 years old. Good news. I don't think I'm allergic. Nothing's swelled up that bad at all. But
I'm glad I did get stung though, and you too, because now if our kids get stung, we're gonna be like, no, I get it, it's all right. Like, let's get some ice and put ice on it. Whereas before I'd be like, yeah, all right, it happens. You're fine.
You're fine, man. It's like a prick. No, man.
I have never been stung by it.
Really?
Oh, ever, dude? You need to go out right now and go get stung.
I've been stung like 7 or 8 times.
Jeez, man.
Never.
I guarantee you, Omar, that being stung by a small honeybee hurts more than getting your kick checked.
I don't know that I've been stung by a honeybee.
Oh, yeah?
I feel like all mine were like yellow jackets.
Oh yeah?
It might have been a yellow jacket. It wasn't that big, though.
To help you. I'm more than willing to help you test that theory. More than willing.
Yeah, I'll take the beast thing, man, to be perfectly honest. I'll take the beast thing. It just hurts for 3 seconds and then you recover. The shin check hurts for days.
That's true. You might be right about that. My other bit of news is that you can find me in Milwaukee this weekend announcing my first gig with Anthony Pettis Fighting Championship, APFC Midwest Invitational. Let's go. Very excited about that. Get your tickets. Find them at my Instagram link in bio. All that business. Check me out. Just got my...
yeah, he got the official APFC printout.
Right.
I saw that on his Insta.
Got my cards printed out.
It's official
Gotta
as hell.
cut them up. Make them all nice.
I did see you on a casual Zoom, though.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
rubbing
right?
shoulders.
Just chilling.
Just casual.
Chilling. Duke Rufus is on there. No big deal.
Yeah,
no big
my
deal. The
best friend
box
now.
on the Zoom that said Showtime, that wasn't Pettis, right?
No, that was the guy who kind of is running everything.
Okay.
Man, Pettis probably can't log into shit right now. He's probably
I know, man.
Poor guy, man. I can't even believe he broke both of his hands.
I really wish that he was heading into this weekend, coming off of a nice win for his sake and for everybody's. But, it's unfortunate. Guy broke both his hands fighting. Yeah. Speaking of fighting...
Still fought. I mean, he still fought a good fight. We'll get to it.
Yeah, man, we'll get to it. Speaking of fighting from last weekend, we have a lot to get through, gentlemen, for this show. Episode 55 of our show here and new MMA show. We're going to start, as we always do, with our first segment on the marquee, talking about fights from this past weekend's UFC on ESPN, Santos versus Hill. We're going to recap some fights, throw a bunch of fights into our lightning round. We're going to find out who rose and who fell in our very own rankings system, the Priaulx Rankings, created and maintained by Mark himself. We're going to find out some quick updates from PFL action last weekend. We're going to find out what's going on in the headlines with our segment Inside the MMA Sphere that Omar constantly is our curator for. And then we're going to dive ahead, gentlemen, looking at this coming weekend. We have a lot of MMA action coming at you. We're going to touch on pretty much all of it for you guys, looking at PFL, Bellator, and UFC, of course. And then we're going to end with a little bit of trivia, as we are accustomed to do. And before we get into any of the fight talk, gentlemen, let us first thank our listeners and our viewers. If you're watching this right now on YouTube, thank you so much. Go ahead and hit that like button and the bell icon or something like that. Hit subscribe if you haven't done so yet. And of course, share this video with somebody who you know loves MMA and might not yet know about our show. And nothing's better than a comment down below. If you like any of our takes or don't like any of our takes, let us know. It's happening again.
It's happening again.
Yeah, keep going, though. Keep going.
Yeah, keep going. Speaking of the comments, we got a bunch of comments this week, and it was awesome. So keep them coming.
Yes.
I love to see the comments.
Yes, absolutely. Find us wherever you get your podcasts, and, of course, join the conversation on social medias. You can find us at @&_MMA show and all the places. All right. Let's get into this. If my microphone is fucking working. This week, the name on the marquee has got to be Jamahal Hill, who this past weekend at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas defeated Thiago Marreta Santos by TKO. The official time coming, what was the official time? I lost the official time. In round number 4, I know that. It was a battle, gentlemen, back and forth. And Jamahal Hill earns the biggest win of his career thus far. Main event Maul strikes again. Mark, let me send it over to you first this time. What was your reaction to Jamahal Hill getting a big statement win on his career?
What a win, man. Jamahal Hill earned that one. He had to gut that out for sure. He got hit with a lot of wrestling. I don't know if he was expecting to get hit with that much wrestling or not, but he certainly got hit with a lot from a guy who was visibly bigger and you would think stronger than he is. He was getting his gas tank tested. He had a guy leaning on him, wearing on him. For 3 rounds, his punches weren't quite having the effect that he's used to them having. Every time he started to land on Santos, Santos would kind of go into a bit of that old-school buzzsaw mode where he would just start firing back. And the firepower from Santos, as much as he's on a losing streak, is still so heavy that Hill would kind of have to back off. So he couldn't really get in that rhythm he likes to get in, where he puts a few things together and sets up the kill shot. Santos wouldn't let him get into that. And, he couldn't really get off the way that he wanted to, but he never got frustrated. He never got lazy for a second. His takedown D and his ability to get up was on point. I was so impressed with how mentally tough he was. He never, in a single one of those clinches or Santos leaning on him or Santos getting him down, not one of them was he ever mentally broken for even 5 seconds where he was like, I'm going to lay here for a minute. Nothing. Every time it was immediately looking to get back to his feet, pushing away, whatever he could do. I was really impressed by that. And he just kept fighting until he found his angle. He knew he did have the advantage on the feet if he could just keep it there, keep a little separation. He found the angle, he landed the big one, and he knew he had to pounce before Santos could reset because he knew how hard it was for him to land that big one, and pounce he did. He did not let Santos breathe. Herb Dean took his sweet-ass time calling that fight. I thought it was going to get called a couple times before it got called. But Jamahal Hill gets an enormous win for his legitimacy as a contender in this division.
Omar, let me send it over to you now. What was your take on this big win by Jamahal Hill over Thiago Santos?
Herb Dean did get a little Yamasaki that night, didn't he? He was a little. He was a little like, let the warrior it out a little bit too much there. Yeah, that fight could have definitely been stopped just a smidge earlier than it was. You didn't have to wait for Santos to go full belly down and like not want to fight anymore. At the same time, it was a great performance from Jamahal Hill. I've loved Jamahal Hill, like I said last week, for quite some time now. His striking, I think he's super unorthodox, right? He doesn't really look like the guy who's got the most amazing technique or anything like that, but the man is very, very effective. His tenacity is a fucking problem when it comes to getting into those kind of wars like that. I think there were two big takeaways from me from watching that fight. One is Jamahal Hill can stand in the fire, right? He can stay at the top of that division, I think, and he can really hang with the best of them. The other thing that was really concerning was Thiago Silva and his approach. It might be me, Santos. What did I say? Silva?
Yeah.
Sorry, Santos.
Yeah, it happens.
I had a couple of different thoughts about the Santos approach, and I might be overthinking it. I might not know what the fuck I'm talking about. But there was moments of that fight, including the corner's reaction to how Santos was approaching that fight, that made me believe no one in his corner believes in his fucking striking anymore. Like, no one. And that's very concerning to me. Santos is not a wrestler. And to have his coach berating him in the corner that, stick to the game plan, which apparently is takedown, 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 don't get into a firefight with this guy, you're not at a bar, and all this stuff. While I can agree that you don't want to just haphazardly be against the cage winging shots, hoping for the best, at the same time, there didn't really seem to be an approach as to how he was going to win that fight if he couldn't get a takedown. There was no plan B. If you can't take Jamahal Hill down, then what are you going to do? There was no striking proper, no real effort to bring a striking game to that fight. And Jamahal Hill was more than welcome to play with his takedown game because Santos really didn't do much with it. And to Jamahal Hill's credit, how many did he stuff? I mean, it had to be double digits by the end of that fight, I feel like. He only got taken down, I think, a handful of times out of the 20 or so takedown attempts that Santos pulled that night. It was a little
more than he
frustrating.
didn't.
It was frustrating to see from Santos and from Santos's corner that there wasn't any urgency to throw hands, to trust in his hands, in his legs, in his feet, in his striking acumen to get something done in that fight. It seemed like they were trying to what I would assume be the path of least resistance, where Santos doesn't get hurt, Santos doesn't get knocked out. There's not this worry of Santos dropping the ball, basically. And yet here we are again. Santos fighting scared leaves him again to lose another fight. I don't know if it's the corner that needs to change. I don't know if it's a mental thing where he needs to go to one of those sports psychologists. I really don't know. What I can tell you is the man has not fought properly since John Jones, and he's not doing himself any benefits by continuing to do what he's doing. It's insane at this point. Something needs to drastically change. Otherwise, we're never going to see a Santos that's going to reach his full potential. Never.
It could have been that his corner thought that their opponent was such a striker, so proficient in striking and not that well-rounded, not as well-rounded as Santos. So they wanted to take advantage of maybe what they thought was a disparity in ground skills.
I don't disagree.
But you're right. It's like Thiago Santos can strike, man. He has so many highlight reel finishes of his own.
I don't disagree with you, though. I mean, if the game plan is let's take advantage of this guy who we think we can take advantage of in an area, totally fine. How many fucking rounds does it take for you to realize that shit doesn't work? Change it up. You got to be able to
he was
adapt
winning
on the fly.
2-1 after 3 rounds.
But he might have been winning on the scorecards, but he wasn't winning the fight. Very much so, in my opinion, wasn't winning the fight. He was gassing himself out trying to take Jamahal Hill down. There was a matter of time before Jamahal Hill came back and beat the shit out of him based on how much energy he was using. There was no efficiency in that fight. No efficiency with the way he was grappling. No efficiency in the way he was moving. It just wasn't great, man. I was really sad to see Santos not be able to perform better than he did. Because he can.
My issue is less with. I mean, I agree, but I'm even a bigger picture that it's less about this particular individual game plan. It's about all the game plans since the John Jones fight. It's like the thing that was his X factor that made Thiago Santos a guy that was frightening to be across from was how much he would just march at you in this buzzsaw. He could throw every strike in the book. You wouldn't know what was coming. They all come with power from every angle. Like, that was what made Santos Santos. Sometimes it wouldn't go his way. He'd get out techniqued maybe, like Bones tried to do. Granted, that fight was super close. But that was, like, the thing that got him to the height that he reached.
Agreed.
And though he hasn't always gone to this wrestling game plan, he has gone to all these kind of different game plans, and none of them involve the thing that got him to where he is. So, again, we know he had the leg injuries, and who really knows, but, like, every time I watch him fight, I'm just like, man, I would pay money if I could force Thiago Santos to fight one fight in the old Thiago Santos style so I could see what happens. So I could see if he knocks someone out, and I'm like, well, there we go. Or if he can't do it anymore, and I'm like, all right, I get why he's not even trying because he's like a shell of himself or something. But we don't even get to really find out because he fights in this non-aggressive manner, which is, again, polar opposite of what Thiago Santos is.
Yeah. I've never, for whatever reason, Thiago Santos now blocks strikes like he's like waiting for a sword to hit him. Like there's no guard with Santos as much anymore, right? Like if you watch a lot of the fights when he's moving and he's trying to stay away or whatever, guys are throwing shots at him. His fucking hands are coming out here like he's trying to stop a car crash or something like that. If you go to any class in boxing, in Muay Thai, karate, I don't care what discipline it is. Fucking Wing Chun, I don't care. No one wants you to have your hands propelled outward to stop a punch that's coming forward. No one teaches you to do that. And this man can't be at the highest level reacting to shots like he's terrified of the world coming at him. It just can't be like that. And it wasn't always like that. And I really don't know what changed after the Bones fight because I don't even think Bones really like lit him up like that. You know what I mean? That fight was a lot more technical than it was. I in my opinion, looking from the outside in, didn't seem super damaging, in that aspect for him to all of a sudden be scared of all these shots. But to me, that's a huge difference in the way that he fights, and it makes him fight scared, and I would imagine stops him from pulling the trigger 90% of the time that he should be pulling the trigger. So again, things that I don't understand why no one is either telling him, working on him with. Like, if I was his coach, these small fundamental things, I would never let that dude fight until he can fix them. Until he could prove to me that he's not doing that shit in the cage, you can't take another fight. You just can't. Mental, whatever the case is, we got to fix it. Because at this point, he's lost how many in a row? He's taken all of this damage as a result of the way he's been fighting. No one's winning here. No one on his side is winning here.
The love for Thiago Santos coming out of Omar is real.
I know what he's capable of, and I did really love him when he was coming up.
Well,
and the serious shift in potential is maddening to me.
Well, he's also 38, and he has like 35 fights on his record. So there's a lot of miles, man. And bear in mind, he also came off of what did he tear? His MCL against Jones or something like that?
It was both knees. I'm pretty sure it was both knees that were messed up.
Am I remembering this wrong? Or did he... Because his return fight after Bones was the Glover fight.
Correct.
Didn't he come out like his totally regular self and like blitz Glover and drop him and hurt him? Obviously, then he ends up getting taken down and getting subbed. But I think he fought that fight the same way as he usually fought. I wonder if it was that fight and him like
Yeah, I have
feeling
to
like
rewatch
he went 2-0D and he needed to fight calmer. Like I wonder if it was that fight that made him change his style. Because after that was
I'd have to
Rocket,
rewatch
where
it.
he fought weird. Johnny Walker, where he won, but still a decision. And then Ankalaev fought weird. Hill fought weird.
No one
Yeah.
won in that Johnny Walker fight. No one. We didn't win.
Okay.
They didn't win. It was a terrible fight.
Yeah.
Let's return to the winner and also put a little bit more pace on this, gentlemen, because my technical difficulties has pushed back our start time tonight. Let's return to the winner, Jamahal Hill, who deserves all the praise, and talk about what is next for him. Mark, let me start with you here. Looking at the light heavyweight rankings, if you were the matchmaker for the UFC right now, what are you wanting to do with Jamahal Hill?
So I actually haven't looked at what the UFC did. I'm curious how high they jumped him. I want to look right now. I will have it up in 1 second. Wow, they did go pretty high. They've got him at 6.
Did they?
Yeah, he's number 6 right now. As much as I like Jamahal Hill, and as much as I think this was a huge win for him, he did get tapped by Paul Craig only 3 fights ago. So, yeah, he's won fights since then. I don't think he should suddenly be shot into fighting Jan or Yuri as he's asking for. I don't think that we're there. I still think that Yuri and Glover should be fighting. I still think Jan and Magomed is the obvious fight. If those aren't the matchups, I still think you take those 4 men and match them up however you're going to match them up. I don't think Jamahal Hill has cracked into that area. And he's not the only one saying it. I've heard analysts say it too. Well, why not give Hill Jan? I don't think we're there just because he beat Thiago Santos, who is very obviously not the same Thiago Santos and who has now lost 4 out of 5 fights. So I love Hill. I just feel like we got to see more. I feel like he's got to properly earn it. A lot of these guys around him are hurt. Rakic is hurt. Smith is hurt. Reyes is whatever he is. Who knows when he's coming back. So it's not like there's that much more in between him and that group. But I think he's got to take one more fight. We know they booked Volkan and Nikita Krylov, and I think he should just fight the winner of that fight. Yeah.
So I have a slightly different take. I understand where Mark's coming from. And I feel like if this was like 5-6 years ago, I'd be totally on board with this. Let's just go straight. But let's be real. UFC's been doing a bunch of wacky shit, right? Like they got the Izzy fight now with Pereira. Pereira might as well be 2 years old in the UFC, if that. You know what I mean? Like a baby in the UFC fighting now for the championship off of 2 wins that, let's be real, it's Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland did work to get to where he's at. That's fine. But he's getting a title shot off of a win off of Sean Strickland and some can. So, I mean, there's not. And Islam is another one who's also getting a title shot. You know, he's got a run of guys that he's beat, none of any consequence for the most part. He's got 1 solid win on the resume when it comes to when it comes to fighting for the title, and they're giving it to him too. So it's not the craziest thing in the world to say that Jamahal Hill could fight for a light heavyweight title, considering he's technically done more work than the last 2 guys I just mentioned. So,
wow.
The Paul Craig one, the Paul Craig one too, we can look at it on paper and say, yes, he lost by TKO. Like I keep forgetting that it wasn't a sub, but by TKO.
Well, yeah, okay.
Yes. But again, if we look back at that fight, Paul Craig was doing the Paul Craig thing where he was getting beat up until he wasn't. So, like, we can take away from that fight that Jamahal Hill lost that fight by getting his arm dislocated and then getting elbowed to hell. But that was at the very end of what was a considerable little ass beating that Paul Craig took before that point. If we were to run that back again, in my opinion, Jamahal Hill beats the shit out of Paul Craig a second time around. So I'm kind of okay with Jamahal Hill getting a title shot. the problem is it's like everything is kind of very stagnant right now, right? Like we do have things that are kind of in motion.
No, yeah.
I'm saying I'd be okay with a title shot, but the logistics of this thing right now is he can't get a title shot because things are already in flux, things are already in motion, right? If there was nobody looking at Yuri right now, I'd say, yeah, throw him the fuck in there. Let's see what happens. Let's have some fun because the light heavyweight division hasn't really been super explosive. You know what I mean? Let's mix the shit up. However, with the things are the way that they are, right? And so my pick would really be the winner of the Paulo Costa Luke Rockhold fight. Whoever wins that fight should fight Jamahal Hill, and then
that's not a 205, is it?
Is it not?
I thought it's a middleweight fight.
I thought it was a 205.
Wow, did I miss that? No, dude, it's a middleweight fight. It's a middleweight fight. Yeah.
I didn't think Rockhold was going back down to middleweight. Oh, all right. Well,
yeah.
Never mind.
That would not
honestly,
be the worst idea though.
Yeah, I was kind of okay with that, man. That would have been fun.
My issue is
should be fighting.
I don't know how you jump any of Glover, Yuri, Jan, Magomed. If you put Hill against any of those people, that means one of those four guys is not in a marquee fight, and I don't know how Hill jumps any of those guys.
What do you mean that would be a marquee fight? What do you mean by not a marquee fight? I'm confused.
So I said those four guys: Yuri, Glover, Magomed, Jan. If you put Hill in against one of those four, that means one of those four is now left out and not getting a marquee fight. And
not getting like a top 5 fight.
I don't know how you do that to one of those four.
I get you. So you think Jan and Magomed should fight?
Yes.
That's what I mean.
Okay.
Like those four guys need to run it before we talk about what's next for Hill. Let Hill take his few months off. Let Hill, do what he needs to do. He's not fighting tomorrow. But Yuri and Glover need to figure that out first. And then Jan and Magomed also need to do their thing. Where the chips lay, Jamahal should be given an opportunity right after that.
Oh, I'm fine with that.
Here's the one thing as I'm looking at these top 4 guys: Yuri, Glover, Jan, Magomed. All 4 of them immensely talented.
Yep.
And I don't mean this as a slight against anything, because all 4 of those guys, I'm a fan. All 4. Love watching all 4 of those guys fight. Not one of them is a real personality in the sport. Yuri is, because Yuri's kind of like off the beaten path kind of a guy. He wears karate gis out in public and like does katas on mountaintops.
Yeah.
But Magomed, Jan, Glover are all very sort of reserved, normal guys. What I like about Jamahal Hill is he's got a personality. Yeah. And I think he could really be a shot in the arm for the light heavyweight division in the upper echelon now that he's sort of knocking on the door. That being said, guys, let's
it's a shame
march on here.
It's a shame Rakic is hurt, because that would really just be the perfect answer right now.
Yeah,
even Anthony
that's a great
Smith.
Point.
If Anthony Smith wasn't hurt, I would have said to throw him in there.
Yeah, either of those. Yeah.
Both of them being hurt really fucks everything up when it comes to matching things up for Hill.
Yeah.
Quickly, because we do owe Thiago Santos this due respect, give me a name, Mark, real quick, of where you would want to match him up with.
So he is obviously, as we've discussed, sliding pretty hard at this point. You can kind of keep him in the mix if you want to use him as the return fight for Dominick Reyes. I don't hate that idea. I also don't hate letting someone who's up and coming get a shot at Thiago Santos. So if you took the winner of Dustin Jacoby and Khalil Roundtree and gave them Thiago Santos, I think that'd be a fucking banger.
Oh, either way, violence. Okay. Omar, agree, disagree? Any other names?
Dude, I'm not mad at that at all. I was also thinking of Dom. I mean, I feel like we throw out a new name for Dominick Reyes every other week because the fucking guy is not doing anything. But a fight with Dominick Reyes would be a good fight. Both of them are coming off of not great records in recent memory, and it would be great for them to kind of figure out where they land in the light heavyweight division. But goddamn,
Dude,
winner.
Prohaska knocked Reyes into the year 2024, so we might not see him for a while.
No, I saw another headline the other day that said he's. Now I forget what it said. It might have said November, but it said like soon it's getting announced.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, expect a Reyes fight announcement. So we'll see.
All right. Well, congrats to Jamahal Hill on this huge win of his career, defeating Thiago Santos in the main event of their fight night.
Yes.
In the co-main event, the winner of the co-main event, gentlemen, had a shot at being on the marquee this week, bumping off Jamahal Hill, because in the welterweight division, Geoff Hands of Steel Neal turned in arguably the best performance of his career to date, defeating arguably the best competitor he has yet to face. And he absolutely beat the brakes off of Vicente Luque, who I love. And I love both these guys now. I mean, I said on last week's episode, I believe, that I've never really been a Geoff Neal guy. And he converted me, man. He looked absolutely tremendous this past Saturday night. So Geoff Neal defeats Vicente Luque, by knockout. The official time coming at 2 minutes and 1 second of round number 3. Omar, let me send it over to you first this time. What was your impression of Hands of Steel Neal?
So Geoff is very welcome for us talking so much shit about him that it lit a fire under his ass last week. Because the boy must have heard everything we were saying and was like, all right, I'm going to fuck this kid up. And did so in amazing fashion. I don't think I would have ever picked Geoff Neal to win, and I don't think I would have ever picked him to win by knockout. He put on an absolute clinic on Vicente. The guard of Vicente was not helping him at all. Geoff's hooks were going right into it. Geoff's uppercuts were going right through. He put on a real good performance, and the finish was just disgusting. It was so nasty.
That succession of uppercuts, he just kept firing uppercuts. Oh my God.
And he never let him breathe, never let him recover, never really let him get into a comfortable spot. And it really was the best performance I think we've ever seen from Geoff Neal. I haven't seen him with that kind of aggression since he got into the UFC. So it was nice to see, and hopefully that's consistent. I will not be jumping on the Geoff Neal bandwagon. I am not necessarily convinced that this is a consistent type of performance that we will be getting from him. But I hope that it is, because I'm more than willing to board if it is. So.
Okay. So you're saying that I need to see a little more.
I need to see consistency. Give me at least one more performance back to back, just like that. I'll fucking hop on the train. Let's go.
The last time Geoff Neal got a win by finish, by TKO, was over Mike Perry back in 2019. So things have been a little up and down for him since then. After losing 2 straight, he has now won 2 straight. Before this fight, he defeated the always tough Santiago Ponzinibbio back in December, and now he has this great win over Vicente Luque. Mark, what was your impression of Hands of Steel Neal getting it done by TKO?
That was incredible. That was Geoff Neal at his absolute peak, and that is what he can be. And that's why I think we all collectively have been so frustrated with Geoff Neal in the past, because he so rarely is that guy for a full fight, which is why you can't fault us for not picking him. Because, if we were told, hey, round 1 Geoff Neal, or the Geoff Neal that occurs once his coaches yell at him for 10 minutes is actually going to fight the whole fight, maybe we think different. But until you see it, you can't bank on it, and now we finally saw it. So even in this one, he teased it ever so slightly in like the first half of round 2 that he was going to take his foot off the gas. And you could hear his coaches screaming at him. If you did not notice it, watch it back. Because they know what is at risk of happening. And they were like, we're just going to scream so fucking loud that this guy has to snap out of it. And it didn't happen. He maybe took that little 2-minute rest, and then he got it going again. But that was it. That was a consistent minute-to-minute Geoff Neal, which is a whole different beast. The hand speed, the accuracy, the power behind the shots, especially behind that left hand. The left hand is crazy from Geoff Neal. And just keeping up the aggression without lulls. If he can do that, he's dangerous for anybody. You see what he's capable of. He just finished a guy who's never been finished with strikes, and he finished him bad. So Vicente Luque is an incredibly tough and dangerous fighter. But on the flip side, to go to him for a second, he has always gotten hit a lot. And there's kind of a hard ceiling on him because of it, it seems. Like, the guy just does not move his head, to be quite frank. And against certain guys, and Geoff Neal we now know is one of them, he throws his left with such speed that if Luque's not really going to move his head, he's going to get hit a lot of times. And in this fight, Luque couldn't really get into what we love to see from him, which is how he kind of starts putting those barrages together that are big power shots. He couldn't do it because he was just getting hit too often every time he got in that range, and he kept having to reset because he was getting hit so cleanly. So it's a tough loss for Luque. I'm sure he's going to take a little time. I don't know if Luque, being the defensive fighter that he is, who is so, I don't want to say willing to get hit in the face, but you know what I mean. I don't know if he can ever break through to truly win a title with his style, which sucks because I love the guy. But he got exposed a little bit here. Geoff Neal, as I said, finally puts together 15 minutes or, less than 15 of aggressive Geoff Neal, and we see what he can be. So a huge win for his career going forward.
Omar, let me send it back over to you to do a little bit of matchmaking now for this perhaps new version, unlocked version of Geoff Neal. Put on that matchmaker hat and tell me what you would do next with Hands of Steel.
So Geoff Neal is also kind of stuck in this little area where there's a lot of moving parts at the top of the division. I think we've kind of gotten to the point now where he definitely needs a top 5 guy. He definitely needs that exposure and, one of those marquee fights like Mark was talking about. But right now it's Usman and Edwards. I think Bilal has something going on just now that was announced recently.
Brady.
Gilbert Burns has been called out left and right by everybody and their mother, but no one knows what Gilbert Burns is doing right now. It could be Jorge Masvidal. I think somebody else called out. Shavkat Rakhmonov, I think, also called out Gilbert Burns as well. Gilbert's like, if Jorge doesn't answer me, then I'll fuck you up too. I don't care. So we'll see what happens with Gilbert, but it seems like he's got things on the agenda. Hamzat, I think, is supposed to be or looking to fight Colby, but no one knows where the hell Colby is.
No, Hamzat's fighting Nate, dude. Hamzat's fighting Nate. You know that.
Yeah, Nate Diaz, bro.
Right. Listen, I'm all over the place. Colby is MIA. He was caught at some poker tournament, and that was about it. So it's a lot of weird moving parts in the welterweight division right now, so it's hard to say exactly how far Geoff Neal can go up. I would say once a couple fights are resolved, that might be the better way to figure out what's next. Maybe the winner of the Bilal Muhammad Sean Brady fight, or even maybe the loser at that point. But it's kind of hard to say. There's just too many things going on right now.
I agree. Mark, any other ideas?
So he called out Gilbert Burns, and I love that. I think that'd be a great fight. I know we've had the rumors of Gilbert versus Jorge. If that fight doesn't happen, and if Gilbert can't happen, I also wouldn't mind Neal against Jorge. But if Gilbert and Jorge are fighting each other, then I move to where Omar is at, which is that it becomes very difficult to match Geoff Neal up. So yeah, Gilbert, Jorge work. If they're fighting each other, it's tough. It's almost like he's going to have to fight down because there's nothing else that is really available. He may have to be the guy that fights Shavkat Rakhmonov or something along those lines.
Whew, tough fight.
I wouldn't actually mind Jorge Masvidal fighting Vicente Luque. I think that fight is super interesting and probably a better matchup considering the circumstances.
I would like that too. I don't know if Jorge takes that with Vicente coming off 2 losses, but I would like
Vicente, yeah. Any other names for Luque real quick, Mark, before we move on?
I wouldn't mind seeing him have to turn back a contender, a little bit of a fresher face. I've thrown this guy's name out a couple times. I don't know what his deal is. I don't know why he's not fighting. But I think Luque and Daniel Rodriguez would be a really sick fight.
Ooh.
Great fight. Fight. It would be a big jump for Daniel Rodriguez.
I mean, he's got to be, like, if these rankings went to 16, he's got to be 16. Like, he's literally right there.
Love Daniel Rodriguez.
Even the boy Kevin Holland would be an interesting fight.
That'd
be a great test for Holland. Great test.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. In the interest of time, in the heavyweight division,
you got to preface it with the lightning.
Oh, yes, we're entering into our lightning round. Here we go. Lightning round. Mark and Omar are going to give me their quickest, lightningest takes. A phrase or two, perhaps. Here we go. We're going to do the whole rest of the card, right?
Yes.
Let's do it.
Okay. In the heavyweight division, Muhammad the Motor Usman defeats Zach Paunga by knockout in devastating fashion. Joining his older brother, Kamaru Usman, as tough winner. Time will tell whether he will also join Kamaru as UFC champion. Mark, go first.
Did I say it or did I say it, Omar? He improved in a way that made no sense. These things just fucking happen sometimes. You can't explain it. The guy showed no sign of any kind of knockout power on the show. And he certainly showed zero ability to throw anything that wasn't a wild winging hook. Then he comes out here and lands a perfect check hook that had the power of a nuke and puts Pauga dead. I got nothing. I don't know how he got here. It's just, this is MMA. He's the brother of Usman. They focused on him on tough. So MMA magic happens, and then boom, here we go. Everyone look at Muhammad Usman.
Yeah, man. Omar, go.
There was nothing in that fight that we saw in all of tough. There was no reason for me to think, other than the fact that he's Usman's little brother, that he was going to win that fight, let alone win that fight like that. It was a good performance, though. That check left hook barely even looked like it landed, and it put Zach out completely.
Broke his nose.
Zach was fighting a decent fight up until that point. It wasn't anything magical, but he was able to control some distance here and there and use his strikes, but he just wasn't as effective as we've seen him in The Ultimate Fighter up until that point. So it was kind of interesting that I feel like we saw a less effective Zach Pauga from his performance in the tough in the finale, whereas controversially the Usman brother showed nothing during tough and then all of a sudden came out with some decent striking acumen. So good on listen, if there was one fight to come out the best in, it was the fucking finale. So good on Usman for doing that. Can't hate on him for it. It's a good performance.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy for the guy. He lost his son.
Yeah.
It's happy for the guy.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I'll break from tradition and add my 2 cents real quick because I thought Zach Paunga clearly, to me, looked like the superior striker, overall superior fighter the whole fight. He comes out, he gets caught with a check hook that, on the replay, doesn't even look like much.
Yeah. Nope.
And it just was right on the button. And then he followed up with that hammer strike from the clouds and almost killed him. God.
Every time we see somebody get knocked out, this isn't very lightning-y. Every time we see somebody get knocked out, we always see them kind of stiff or out or whatever. I hate it when the guys get knocked out and you see their faces writhing in pain and then they get slammed again. That shit always kills me, man. When their pain, the pain is all over their face. That shit sucks. I don't like that.
And it's like, dude, that could have been a walk-off. Like, he didn't need to freaking do that.
Definitely.
Anyway, moving on.
He went
Lightning
down
round.
like potatoes.
I think Pauga will be back, though. He's a very talented guy.
He might be
Should they
back
offer him a
at
contract.
205 for what it's worth.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, moving on. Lightning. Women's flyweight, Juliana the Killer Miller TKOs Brogan Walker-Sanchez 357 of round number 3. In doing so, becomes the female tough winner. Omar, take it.
Did I say it, Mark, or did I say it? Juju is a beast, man. Brogan, this is another one that I thought was super interesting because Brogan didn't even really, I feel like, put it all together like she had been doing.
No, I thought she looked flat.
The season. She did look a little flat, and Juju looked like she has something to prove in there, man. And she did the damn thing, and I was loving every bit of it. And she got the submission win. She got the TKO win. She ends up getting up. She hits her with the suck it right on top of her forehead and just walks off like a fucking gangster. Juju is a great tough winner. I'm excited to see how far she can go. Again, another fighter who's just not the most technical when it comes to the visuals, right? She's not super flash or anything like that. But that girl's middle name could be spelled Grit. and it would make all the sense
Right.
in the world. That girl is an absolute
She's a
fighter
fighter.
from beginning to end. I loved every minute of it. I hope she can go as far as, as the title. I'm optimistic for her, but it's going to be that's a tall order right now. Definitely a tall order.
Mark, your reaction, Juliana Miller, tough winner.
Yeah, Juju is a gangster. I mean, this fight wasn't close. This was a coming out party for Juliana Miller, big time. And you said it, Brogan looked so good on the show and just really didn't have anything at all for Juju in this fight. I was a big fan of Juju on the show, and I wanted to pick her last week, and I was honestly just a little too afraid to believe in someone who is as raw as she is. As much as I love her, as much as I love her game, she's obviously raw in a lot of ways.
Sure.
Against someone who kind of just showed such a complete game that Brogan had. And, God, there was no complete game to speak of. Juju was ready for the spotlight, and she just took it, man. There's a lot of potential in her because she is very early in her MMA career. And I said the same thing last week. She checks a lot of X-factor boxes right off the gate. And as people work with her more and more, higher-level training, she's going to improve a lot.
Yeah, man. All right, let's move on here. Back to the heavyweights. Sergey Spivak dominates Augusto Sakai, eventually getting the TKO stoppage victory at 3 minutes and 42 seconds of round number 2. Mark, sticking with you. Go first.
This is another one that was an absolute drubbing. Augusto Sakai had nothing for him. I read this one wrong. Lesson here is that you don't pick the guy whose game you don't even like. I don't know why I did that. But Spivak is coming along really well. His hands look better here. He's actually starting to look like a threat. And Sakai is looking like a guy who all of a sudden, kind of almost out of the blue, may not even be long for the UFC. Like, he just looks legitimately bad all of a sudden.
Omar, what's your take?
I'd have to agree. I thought Spivak was going to get this done a little bit earlier than he did. But he was mixing it up really nicely. He landed a lot of big shots, but was also able to take him down when he needed to kind of keep Sakai off of his game. And that was really where I thought he was going to excel. I didn't think Sakai had anything for him on the ground or being able to keep him off of the ground. So I really thought this was Spivak's fight to win, and he ate for 2 rounds and spit Sakai right out.
Okay, in the lightweight division, Terrence McKinney cruises to a submission victory over Eric Gonzalez. Looking dangerous in all spots throughout this fight. Gonzalez tapping to a rear naked choke at 2 minutes, 17 seconds of round number 1. Omar, go first.
I love this kid, man. Like, there's something so satisfying about watching these up-and-comers be so well-rounded. And, like, we hear that term tossed around a lot, and there are guys who come up in these MMA gyms, and they're good at the ground, they're good. But, like, they don't finish like this kid finishes. Wherever it goes, this kid will lay you out. He will choke you out. He will knock you out. The great thing about this fight, too, was his chin got tested. And we saw him kind of get a beat down in his last fight, off of gassing a little bit early and getting a little crazy. In this fight, though, he caught a good shot right to the chin, stumbled for a minute from his, from the motion. I know we had a little discussion that night about whether that was a rock or whether that was just kind of eating a shot. But the reality is he ate a shot, whether it was a rock or not. He ate it, took it, did what he needed to do, got it to the ground, and got the submission win. Whether you want to say he didn't want to strike with him or whatever, that doesn't matter. He took it to the ground and he submitted him. He finished him. Done deal. Terrence McKinney, baby. I love it. Keep it going.
Mark, what's your take?
Yeah, that was light work as expected for Terrence McKinney. They kind of gave him an opponent to shine there coming off the loss, and shine he did. He was more or less lighting Gonzalez up on the feet, and then, as Omar said, he got hit clean the one time, and he was like, all right, forget it. Let me just sub this guy because he can do that. The guy is nasty everywhere. So as soon as it happened, he just immediate takedown, back take, rear naked choke, light work.
Okay, going down now into the prelims in the middleweight division. Michal Oleksiejczuk TKOs Smiling Sam Alvey in the very first round. I believe in doing so, he broke Sam Alvey's jaw, which, if this was Sam Alvey's last fight in the UFC, how ironic, given that his nickname is Smilin'. Oleksiejczuk, he came out hot, man, and he put it on Alvey, the referee stepping in at 1 minute, 56 seconds of the very first round. Mark, sticking with you, give us your lightning take.
Told you. Watch out for this man. I like him at middleweight. I think he's going to be interesting. He swings hammers, and he certainly did in this one. As you said, broke Alvey's jaw, and can we please officially call it a day on Sam Alvey at this point. I do not need to see this man again. I'm assuming we're not. I really think that was finally the end. But yeah, excited to watch my guy Olashejuk.
Spoiler alert.
Omar, go ahead.
Your man's is released. He is officially been
Oh, yeah?
released.
Oh, he is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So, spoilers. That was a little smidge of the sphere for you.
Just real quick before you begin, Omar, let me just give you this detail. Winless since 2018 was Sam Alvey, and since that time, his last win was against John Vellante, which was a split decision. And then he lost 4 straight, then had a draw against Da Un Jung, and then lost 4 straight.
A draw
So
to Da Un
tough
Jung.
stuff for Sam Alvey.
That's crazy.
Unbelievable that he was on the UFC roster for that long with that many losses in a row.
Oh, it's absolutely incredible. It's inexplicable.
It's got to
Yeah.
be.
Okay, Omar, go ahead with your lightning take.
It's got to be because he's just such a nice dude. But yeah,
He's the
I mean,
best,
there was
man.
nothing.
Such a nice guy.
There was nothing really surprising about that fight. Sam Alvey fought the way Sam Alvey fights, and it's not the prettiest. And the fact is there's so much tape on him at this point that it's easy, I would imagine, for these elite fighters to see the gaps and the holes in Sam Alvey's game and exploit them exactly the way Olashejuk did. It was a clinic as far as I'm concerned, and I'm just glad we don't have to see Sam Alvey taking any more damage in the cage.
Sam Alvey to BKFC?
Oh, God. Please
Wait,
no.
let's wait for the MMA Sphere. Your boy might have some info for you.
Oh
my God.
damn. Okay. Oh, shit. I was just kidding. Okay. Let's rattle these off now. In the welterweight division, Brian Battle head kicks Akashi Sato into next week at 44 seconds of the very first round. Omar, go first.
Yes, sir. Brian Battle, let's fucking go. I have been rallying for Brian Battle since the tough stuff. I know Mark hates that man's nickname, but the man puts on a clinic, a beautiful performance. Sato left with a literal dented imprint of Brian's shin right on his neck. Brian, not the sharpest tool in the shed, may not know multiplication all too well, according to his post-fight interview. However, he is a nasty fighter. I can't wait to see him again.
Mark, what is your take on Pooh Bear getting it done in devastating fashion?
Yeah, I wasn't sure about the drop to welterweight. Then he proceeded to look like death at weigh-ins. So I started to get very concerned, and then he just wins with absolute ease. So, yeah, that one makes sense. But that was a devastating finish. He didn't even look like he threw that head kick hard. It was just like a smooth, perfect head kick. Good night. And Sato was out bad. So, yeah, monster win for Battle to debut in that division. Omar touched on it. He was close to being good on the mic. Like, he had the right energy, but he thinks 75 is quadruple 10, which was disturbing. And then he said he doesn't like how Brian Barberena spells Brian, even though he spells it the exact same way as he does. The guy's got to work on his material.
That had to have been a joke, right? that
No,
was a
dude.
joke.
He's like, I want to call out Brian Barberena. We got to decide who's the best Brian, and you spell your name wrong. Meanwhile, he spells it the same exact fucking way.
No,
For those of you who may be confused...
I think it's a joke.
it definitely wasn't. For those of you who are confused, Brian Battle spells his name with a Y. He believed that Brian Barberena spelled it with an I and was not happy with this. And so called him out. I'm sure he was making a joke at that
that
fact.
part was a joke.
That was a joke, right? You know, being a dumbass about it.
Making it
but
about
the
the name, yeah.
fact itself was wrong. Completely wrong. So the whole joke falls
really
apart.
funny.
Yeah. Which is still
Okay.
not as bad as 75 being quadruple 10.
Yeah, that wasn't great.
I miss his post-fight interview. Tell me what this context was and why he said this.
He went to
Said what? The numbers?
He,
Yeah.
He had put
went
$10
to,
in a slot, and he quadrupled it, and he won 75 or some shit, right?
He was talking about how lucky he felt this weekend and how he went to the casino. He doesn't gamble. He threw $10 in the machine, quadrupled his money, baby. He took it right out of the machine, $75. That's not it. That's not it at all.
Okay, let's move on. We have two more. Let's put a little extra lightning on these last two. In the women's strawweight division, Corey McKenna gets Miranda Granger out of there with a Von Flue choke at 1 minute in the second round. Mark, take it.
Yeah, although McKenna was the favorite, I was really curious to see how she would overcome a 10-inch reach disadvantage, because that is just enormous. But it was no issue. She pressured, she got into clinch situations, she got takedowns, and almost that whole fight ended up happening on the ground, and the reach doesn't matter down there. And she capped it off with a beautiful Von Flue choke. So nice win for McKenna, and she needed that one after her last one.
Omar, go.
Granger's going to be kicking herself in the ass for that one for quite some time, because she kind of gave her that finish. Once that takedown happened, and as soon as McKenna went to side control, you got to let that shit go. You got to let that arm go.
I don't understand how people don't do that.
And she didn't. She realized it late, because by the time she realized it, McKenna had done the proper thing, which you could see OSP do all the time, where he traps the arm in that position. So even if you want to get that arm out at that point, you done fucked up and waited too long, and now you can't. And so the Von Flue choke at that point became very purposeful, very, very precise, and it was a beautiful finish. Not to mention, Corey McKenna becomes the first woman in MMA, in UFC history, to hit a Von Flue choke. Credit to her.
That's sick. Yeah, that's sick. Our last one. Here we go. Lightning round in the women's bantamweight division. Mayra Bueno Silva defeats Stephanie Egger by armbar. 1 minute 17 seconds of round one. Omar, do it.
Yeah, so this was a little weird. They got themselves into a little bit of a tussle on the ground. Bueno Silva was on the bottom position. She ends up hitting an armbar. They get tangled up in a very, very weird position for us to be able to see what's going on. She lets go of the submission, and it looks like the fight is over. Egger argues that she didn't tap. Bueno Silva starts crying and says that she did. It got really weird for a minute. At the end of the day, it was reviewed. They stood by the decision. Mayra Bueno Silva round one submission of Stephanie Egger by armbar. If we take away the controversy, the position itself was absolutely beautiful. The way she turned the corner on that armbar, how deep she had that arm actually in. The fact is, if she didn't tap in that moment, she absolutely would have tapped a few seconds later the more she was cranking it. So I'm totally fine with that win. Credit to Bueno Silva for a great finish.
Mark, bring us home.
She tapped. If you're not protesting in that moment and you're just sitting there silent looking around, what? Huh? You fucking know that you tapped. I have no doubt that she tapped. She was looking good for like a little second. It looked like she was going right into her usual top game that she kind of manages to work on everyone because she's just so strong. And then, boom, super slick armbar, caught bad deep right away. Obviously, as you said, super weird finish. It's wild that even on all the replays, we still can't see it.
Can't see it.
They literally,
yeah.
the way they resolved it was that they went to the judges, who I guess had a good angle, or at least one of them. And he confirmed that he 100% saw the tap, and they trusted him, and that's how they went with the result. So, never seen that one before. Pretty wild. But yeah, I thought the whole silence act from Egger was bullshit. I think she knew she tapped, and Silva gets a big one.
Very different from how the Michelle Waterson fight ended. When we talk about like integrity and like not being kind of a piece of shit, that's exactly what we're talking about. Egger didn't have to do all that. If she tapped, she should have said she tapped.
Well, that does it, gentlemen, for this week's recap of UFC Fight Night Santos versus Hill. Congrats once again to Jamahal Hill for winning the main event fight and for being on our marquee. The following fighters received $50,000 bonuses. Fight of the night was Jamahal Hill and Thiago Santos. Performances of the night went to Geoff Neal, Muhammad Usman, and Brian Battle.
Oh, yeah. Damn, I hope they gave Juju some money, dog. What the fuck?
They'll probably hook her up.
Damn. I hope so.
She got a 6-figure contract.
Yeah, man.
That shit is... That's a 10-10 fight purse right there. 10 to show, 10 to win, and you probably get 5 fights on the contract. Garbage-ass contracts.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah, right.
Go for it. Sorry.
All right, folks, let's jump into our very own ranking system, and by our very own ranking system, I mean Mark's very own rankings system that we call the Priaulx Rankings after him. Mark, take it away. Who rose and who fell in your rankings?
All right, we got a few of note this week. We have 3 risers and a faller. Riser number 1, working down the card from top, is Geoff Neal. He moves from number 13 to number 7 in my welterweight rankings. Finally breaks through to a big-time number. Obviously, he's a guy who has had wins over guys like Belal. He's had these quality wins, but he's never really strung things together at the right time to break through to a big number like that. He does now. UFC has him, I want to say, maybe the same exact number 7, so good for Geoff Neal. Next one, Sergey Spivak, from number 15 to number 10 at heavyweight. The guy just keeps climbing up. He's kind of a guy who, I don't know if anyone saw it coming necessarily, that he would be cracking the top 10 at heavyweight, but he's really putting it together, and he looks tough to beat right now. So he moves up to number 10 in my heavyweight rankings. And then the last one, Omar will be pleased, is Brian Battle. I had to figure out where to slot him in at welterweight when he moved down. Slotted him in at 61 at the time. He now moves all the way up to number 45 in my welterweight rankings, which happens to be one spot below, or one spot above, actually. I got to look now. I forget the man he called out, which is Ian Gary. So they are right next to each other. Let's see. I have him one spot below Ian Gary. So yeah, that is it. That is it for the risers. And then the faller, you can probably guess it. It is our boy Thiago Santos. He takes a tumble here finally. He's lost 4 of 5. He goes from number 5 to number 10 in my light heavyweight rankings. I don't think the UFC moved him down that much. I'd have to look, but I think it was time to drop him. He does not have the quality wins anytime recently on his resume. The only one is really Johnny Walker. He falls to number 10 in my light heavyweight rankings.
Okay.
And that is it for the rankings this week.
Very nice. All right, folks. Like and subscribe. Do all the things. And we're about to head into, what do we do? We're going to the Sphere, right? Oh, no. Let's talk about real quick.
Oh, yes.
Let me pull my notes back up. This past weekend, give us a little PFL update, Mark, of this past weekend's PFL playoffs.
Yeah, just feel we should touch on it quick here. The semifinals in the PFL lightweight division and light heavyweight division went down over the weekend. We'll do the light heavyweight first. They were kind of the lesser of the marquee. The first one, Rob Wilkinson, who I talked up a bit here last week, did exactly what I thought he would do. Finished Dylan Monte by knockout in round 1. He moves into the finals. I would think he's got to be the favorite to be the light heavyweight champ here this year in the PFL. And some people thought he was going to be matching up with Josh Silva. He was the favorite over Omari Akhmedov going into that fight, about a 2-1 favorite. But the UFC vet, Akhmedov, he got it done. He won a unanimous decision as the underdog. He got 3 rounds even on, I think, one of the judges' cards. And he's going to get into the finals here. This is a guy who was a former middleweight in the UFC. He's up at light heavyweight now doing this. So he's made it to the finals. I don't think people saw that coming out of him, but he has looked pretty solid in the PFL. Granted, as I said, I'm sure he will be the dog in the final against Rob Wilkinson, who has really looked fantastic. And then moving over to lightweight, we have the bit of the more marquee names. We had Olivier Aubin-Mercier winning a very clear decision over Alex Martinez. Kind of saw that coming. As I said, I thought Martinez had overachieved a bit. I thought Aubin-Mercier was the favorite in the whole lightweight division. And he gets it done. He even had a 10-8 round mixed in there. He marches to the finals with relative ease. And on the other side, unfortunately, our boy Anthony Pettis just does not seem to have it anymore. I picked him. I didn't see how Stevie Ray could beat him without the kind of fluky thing that happened the first time. And he did. It's just, I don't know. It's tough to pick Anthony Pettis fights right now. He doesn't seem to be the same guy. I wanted to believe that he was going to come back this season and kind of bounce back. He won his first fight, obviously, very quickly by sub over Miles Price. I had the hopes for it, but doesn't seem like it's happening here. Omar, I feel like you have a take over there.
I do. I have a different take. I have a slightly different take. I know he's lost twice to Stevie Ray, and I know the real issue is that it's Stevie Ray, right? This is Pettis. and it's Stevie Ray. It's like, what the fuck? But honestly, I really think that this is one of those styles make fights kind of thing. And I think Stevie Ray is just a bad stylistic matchup for Anthony Pettis. Anthony Pettis has had a career of having issues with guys who can take him down and keep him down. We saw that against Clay Guida. You know what I mean? And this was at the peak of Anthony Pettis being.
But Stevie Ray is not close to the wrestler that Clay Guida is, which is what, I feel like Stevie Ray shouldn't be able to hold Anthony Pettis down.
Yeah, but it's his game. You know what I mean? And Anthony Pettis was ripping shots here and there against Stevie Ray. It's not like, Anthony Pettis went away quietly. He won round 3. He was doing what he needed to do. The problem, I think, has been and probably will be at this point in his career is guys who are consistently trying to take him down. Because once they do, he can probably lay off for, the first round. He basically had half of that round to kind of just work and move around. He was able to stuff a couple takedowns. He's good to go. But if you got a guy like Stevie Ray who's trying to run you down every minute of that fight, eventually Anthony Pettis, with the way he fights, he's going to get tired. And once he gets tired, he gets taken down, and it just kind of becomes messed up from there. Credit to him for actually being able to kind of turn the gas tank back on for the third round because he had been weathering a lot of nonsense up until that point. I don't know if I'm ready to say that Anthony Pettis is done yet. I just think I really think it was just a bad stylistic matchup.
So you don't want me to let go yet, huh? I was ready to let go, and now you're making me feel like I shouldn't let go.
I will be the Rose. I will be Rose to Anthony Pettis's Jack Dawson. I will never let go.
Yeah, but she did let go. Fuck Rose.
Damn, that's rough, though.
What?
That's rough.
She did let go. He died. So yeah, we'll see, I guess, with Pettis. But anyway, the lightweight final is going to be Olivier Aubin-Mercier against Stevie Ray. It's another one where there probably will be a clear favorite betting wise, which will be OAM. But Ray's been surprising, so we'll see if we can do it one more time and claim the big money.
Will you feel better? Would you feel better about this situation if Stevie Ray wins the whole shit?
I guess a little. I'd be surprised if he beat OAM. But yeah, I mean, I guess I'd have to be, right? If he shows he can beat OAM, then maybe he's better than we're giving him credit for. I feel like we're bad. Like, I don't think Stevie Ray's a bad fighter at all. He had some great fights in the UFC. I just don't put him on that level of someone whose game should be able to beat Anthony Pettis, and it has now happened twice. And I can't imagine Stevie Ray has gotten significantly better this late in his career. So it's making me lean toward that it's a struggle for Pettis, but who knows?
Crazier things have happened. We've seen guys get better later on in their careers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, it happens. It happens. Are we ready to move on?
Yes.
All right, boys. Well, let's go into the headlines now with our next segment, Inside the MMA Sphere. Omar, what you got for us?
What's going on? We've got a few stories I want to get into, and then some fight announcements, not too many this week, and then we'll jump right into next week's card because we have quite a few fights to get through. First on the list, a little update on Cain Velasquez. He has officially entered a plea of not guilty. Pre-trial hearing is going to be set for September 26th, where his lawyer is basically expecting to get a witness to testify. If the case is not dismissed at that point, he said that it will go to trial, which could begin before the end of the year. So it looks like the plan, in retrospect, seems to be trying to get the whole case tossed, essentially. And if that doesn't work out, they're going to go to trial. It also sounds like the prosecution will not be calling the man in question, I believe his name is Gregaros or something along those lines, basically the accused. He will not be calling that person to the stand. The defense, Cain Velasquez's attorney, is basically saying they're pussy for doing that he should be on the stand, that he should be a witness there, that he should basically have to explain, the context of the entirety of the situation, and the prosecution is not doing that. So it's interesting how this thing is going down. Always hoping for the best for Cain Velasquez. #free Cain.
Free Cain, baby.
Next on the list, little interesting moments going on in PFL. We've been talking about Kayla Harrison, what's
Yes.
next for her, fighters falling out, and all kinds of crazy shit going on. What happened to Cyborg? Cyborg didn't go to the PFL. Well, as it turns out, Cyborg is officially a free agent, as far as we all know now. And she looks like she was talking about going and doing professional boxing. And now the MMA world has up in storm, like, are you ducking this girl on purpose? Like, what is happening here? This is the fight to make. This has been the fight to make for the last few years, as far as I'm concerned. And so what has happened now is the PFL co-owner or co-founder has announced that he is putting up a multi-million-dollar fight offer to have Kayla Harrison and Chris Cyborg fight. So basically he's saying we can do a winner, or she said we can do a winner take all. We can do, if she loses, she gets to keep her purse. If she needs help getting the deal signed, she'll call Pete Murray herself, get Don Davis and ask them. Whatever price she wants, she'll speak to them on their behalf. Like Kayla Harrison is doing everything she can to get this fight to go. She even said she'll do USADA testing from the moment she stopped speaking on that microphone all the way through that fight, up until that fight. And if Cyborg doesn't want to be drug tested, that she doesn't have to be drug tested. She'll still fight her.
Wow.
And is it at 145?
I believe
Kayla
so.
be
They
coming down?
didn't. I would imagine it would be a 145. They didn't go into specifics on that. But I would imagine it would be at 145. If it was at 150, to be honest, with all the shit Kayla Harrison's talking, she's probably would be like, jump to 10 pounds. I don't give a shit. I'll fuck you up anyway. Come to 155. You don't even have to cut the weight.
I'm sure it's Cyborg that wants it to be at 145. Kayla's the one that would have to cut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what happens, but Kayla is throwing everything in the kitchen sink at Cyborg to take this fight. And so the official offer is basically PFL MMA will offer all money and handle all matters. $1 million to each fighter and $2 million plus $2 million to the winner itself. So there's $3 million on the line for this one fight. Pay-per-view fight.
Wow.
No more talk, he says. Decide the best inside the cage. If you're
Absolutely love it.
I'm not a fighter. I'm not I train. I love the sport. I love the discipline. I'm not a fighter. But if somebody fucking called me out like that, and I was a fighter, you best believe I'm getting in there. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I have to get in there. So we'll see what happens. Once we get an update on that, we'll definitely make sure to let you guys know. But that's some real interesting shit right there.
I'm surprised
Sam
they
Alvey.
leaked it before Kayla was the champ. Because Kayla, I mean, as much as she's going to be the overwhelming favorite, she's still got 2 fights to win. She fights next week, and then she's going to have to fight one more to be the champ. So I'm surprised they didn't just wait and make sure she won before they start releasing all this stuff. But I guess they're that confident that she will.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I don't think they see her losing to anybody but somebody like Cyborg. I mean, and even then, who knows if they even believe that? But the top tier fighters they want her to go up against. Sam Alvey,
and then whoever wins that fight has to fight Nunes somehow, somewhat.
Let's go.
Somehow.
Please.
Yeah. Sam Alvey, like we were talking about earlier, it has been officially released from the UFC. After his sad skid as of recent. Yes, we don't need to be seeing
Way
that
to go,
anymore.
Sam. Hey, man, nothing to scoff at.
No, he's had it. Listen, he's fought a lot of fantastic guys. He's had good performances in the past. He's a tough dude, but it's just we're at a different level at this point, and it's just watching him get hurt. It's just not fun anymore. A little tidbit: UFC 59, UFC Vegas 59 was a historic card. All finishes in that card, but Sam Alvey walked away with a different record as he has officially passed BJ Penn for the most fights in a row without a win. That
Good.
sucks.
Get my boy BJ off of that list.
That sucks.
Do you remember when Sam Alvey beat Rashad Evans?
He beat Rashad?
I
When?
don't remember that.
Yes. That was one of those MMA moments where, like, I was watching it and I was like, I don't like this sport. like, this shouldn't be happening right now. Yeah, man, he beat
That's
Rashad.
wild.
Hang on.
That's crazy.
So you guys were asking what was next
Yeah,
for
dude,
Sam Alvey.
2017.
That's super recent. Oh, that was when he tried to come
decision.
back.
Is that what that was? Was
Yeah.
that Rashad's last fight?
No, I think he had a couple after that. But that was when
he fought Anthony Smith after that. But yeah,
that's right. So we were talking about what's next for Sam Alvey, whether he's going to BKFC or what the deal is. There's nothing official on the table. Literally, Sam Alvey is having an interview with half of his jaw hanging loose. So there's nothing happening right this very second. But Sam Alvey has thrown into the ether that he wants to fight Jake Paul. He wants to be on that short list. Now
he has zero chance of fighting.
This sounds crazy.
I will fight Jake Paul before he fights Jake Paul.
He's got motive though. He's got motive. So here's the thing: Logan Paul and Sam Alvey have sparred before. Logan Paul had actually used Sam Alvey to get prepared for fights in the past, and apparently Sam Alvey has lit him up. And he talks about a story where he was, training with Logan Paul and they were fighting and he hurt Logan Paul at one point. Jake was supposed to fight him as well or spar with him as well. And once he hurt Logan, he wasn't sparring with him at all. And it sounds like Sam Alvey really enjoyed Logan Paul, says he's a cool dude. And then he goes, Jake's a complete douchebag. Didn't like Jake at all. Jake's kind of an asshole and he would definitely fight him. And he basically says, listen, I have a really bad losing record. I've never boxed before in my life. I've done some kickboxing. I've got a winning kickboxing record. I think I'm the perfect opponent for Jake Paul. I feel like I'm right up his alley. I'm older than him. I don't win anymore. Throw me in there. So in that regard, he's not wrong. So there is that.
But that being, I think that Jake Paul has gotten past that level in his own promotional journey. Yeah. Like, yes, he fought. I mean, Sam Alvey's probably thinking, look, if Jake Paul fought Ben Askren, he'll fight me.
Right. Well, the only
he's
difference
not going to fight him anymore.
Sam Alvey and Jake Paul are around the same size. So that might be the one piece of criteria where Jake Paul's like, no, that's not for me. That's not for me. Thought it was interesting, though, that's the route Sam Alvey wanted to go down. But nothing official for Sam Alvey right now. But as soon as there is, we will let you know because Sam Alvey might not be a winner, but he's a winner in our book. All right, next on the list. Where are my notes here? Let's see. So that was it for our stories. Let's get into some fight announcements. Ricardo Ramos versus Danny Henry has been added to UFC Paris on September 3rd. Tony Gravely versus Javid Basharat has been added to UFC September 17th card.
Ooh,
Randy Brown versus Francisco Trinaldo, which is a straight banger, has been added to UFC's Fight Night on October 1st.
I hate
Mark,
that.
you look hurt by that.
I hate, like, Randy Brown has earned more than Francisco Trinaldo. I hate, it's like guys earn something and they bring them backwards. Like, I hate it. Yeah. I hate it.
That's a valid point. Still a good fight, but it's a valid point.
Oh, it'll be a good fight. Come on.
Volkan Ozdemir versus Nikita Krylov, as we alluded to earlier, has been added to UFC's stacked-ass 280 card on October 22nd. Phil Hawes versus Roman Dolitz has been added to UFC's October 29th event. Tagir Ulanbekov versus Nate Maness has been added to UFC's Fight Night on November 5th. Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira has officially been added to UFC's 281 November 12th card. That will be obviously the headliner of that card. That'll be interesting to see how that goes down. Ricky Tercios versus Kevin Natividad has been added to UFC's November 19th event. Let's all hope, for the sake of everybody, that Ricky Tercios figures whatever the hell that last fight was out and comes back looking much better and much more effective. Last on the UFC list, Matt Schnell versus Matthias Nicolau has been added to UFC's December 3rd event. That's I can't even express to you how violent and aggressive that fight is going to be. Make sure you watch that one. Two announcements from Bellator's 286 card coming up on October 1st. Patricio Pitbull versus Adam Borks has been added. AJ McKee versus Spike Carlisle has also been added. So what we will not be getting is a lightweight fight between Patricio Pitbull and AJ McKee. Instead, we will be getting 2 fights, including Pitbull and AJ McKee. And I'm going to add one more thing to the Sphere. I was going to do a little trivia, but the reality is there's no way you guys are going to fucking guess this anyway. So I'm just going to throw the facts out, and it's a little fun. So, like we were talking about, the UFC's event this past weekend had all finishes. Every single one of them, from the first prelim all the way up until the last fight. That is a 100% finish rate. In the event, you may not do math or multiplication well. We know there are some people who are like that. Right now, it is part of now only 10 events in the UFC history with a 100% finish rate. The UFC has been around since November of 1993. Only 10 events in that history have a 100% finish rate. Any guesses? Mark has probably seen literally all of them at this point.
Yeah, I don't have a freaking guess, though. I can't remember.
UFC 1.
I can't remember card names like that.
UFC 1 is correct.
Wow.
That is correct.
Well, yeah,
Right,
because
so
they
here are
didn't
the
even go
cards.
to decisions yet. So, yeah.
So UFC 1, UFC 2, UFC
Right.
3, UFC 4, UFC 6, Ultimate 1996, UFC 40, Tough 5 finale, which, wow. And UFC Fight Night 55. Those are the 9 preceding 100% finish rates, and now we've added on this last Jamahal Hill versus Santos card on there. So
Pretty wild.
nice little fun tidbit for
Very
you
cool.
guys. Like I said,
Very
trivia
cool.
was probably not the right way to go with that one. So, but that's all I got for you boys. Thank you for the Sphere and coming in.
Cool, man. Thank you. Thank you. All right, let us now look ahead to this coming weekend. There's a lot of action going on in the MMA world. Before we get to other fights, we want to quickly touch on both Bellator and PFL. Mark, give us a quick rundown of any fights and fighters that you want to spotlight for our listeners in terms of Bellator 284 as well as PFL 8 in their 2022 playoffs.
Yeah, neither of these are the most stacked card in history or has the sexiest main event or anything like that, but there are certainly fights worth mentioning on these cards, so I'll run through them fairly quickly here. We'll hit Bellator first. Bellator 284, Gracie versus Yamauchi. There are certainly a few relevant fights on this one. One of them that I'll mention is Justine Kish, who just recently beat Ilima-Lei Macfarlane, is going to get a rematch against Deanna Bennett. Funny enough, I remember when we were trying to matchmake for her after she beat Ilima-Lei, I was like, I don't know where they go with her because she just lost to Deanna Bennett, and Deanna Bennett hasn't fought since, so they could never go to Deanna and say, like, hey, I know you just beat Kish, but we need you to fight her again. And that's exactly what they did. So she just beat Kish, and now she's got to try to beat her again in back-to-back fights. So that's on this card. That's a pretty high-level women's flyweight fight, so that should be a good one. Bennett is favored, which makes sense considering she beat her last time. She's about a 2-1 favorite. Beyond that, we have Austin Vanderford in his return fight after getting trounced by Gegard Mousasi. He's actually an interesting one. He's going in there against a kid named Aaron Jeffrey, who kind of is interesting. He looked really good in his debut. He beat Fabio Aguiar. He's only plus 160 as a dog here. So that'll be an interesting fight. I wouldn't be shocked if that one is close. Relevant heavyweight fight, Saeed Salma and Gokhan Sarikam. Sarikam is an up-and-coming heavyweight in Bellator. He's looked really solid. He'll try to break through a little bit against Salma here. Ilima-Lei Macfarlane, who I mentioned earlier, who's on a bit of a skid. She'll be in there across from Bruno Ellen. I'm sure Bellator is hoping she can get back to her winning ways since they certainly use her marketing-wise. And then the two fights that are a bit bigger are the co-main, which is Valentin Moldavsky. Obviously recently lost his belt to Ryan Bader. That division is very messy at the moment. We weren't sure who they were going to pair Moldavsky with. And it's kind of interesting what's happening here. He's matched with Steve Mowry, who is a guy who was 10-0 in his career so far, 10 finishes. He has very quietly been taking dudes out in Bellator. He's a guy who I've kind of been waiting to be like, oh, I want to see which top 10-ish guy he gets to see if he's the real deal. And they just skipped the whole friggin' thing, and they were like, we're going to put him against Valentin Moldavsky and see what happens. But it's interesting because he's a giant. He's got a 7-inch height advantage on Moldavsky. He's got a 4-inch reach advantage. Like I said, he finishes every fight he's ever been in. So I'm very intrigued to see what he looks like. I'm sure you got to lean Moldavsky. He's the betting favorite. He's minus 210. Maori's plus 170. But even those are tight odds for a guy who's unproven against Valentin Moldavsky. So they see it too. So I'll be very interested to see how Moldavsky bounces back here from the loss to Bader. And then the main event, it's honestly a little bit random. It's Neiman Gracie, who's coming off his own loss to Logan Storley. He's going to welcome Goichi Yamauchi up to the welterweight division. He's been a lightweight in Bellator for a while. Been a little bit up and down. Neiman's the favorite. He's minus 180. Goichi plus 150. It's an interesting matchup because Goichi is a really fast striker, and Neiman is still someone who can get pieced up if things don't roll the right way for him. Granted, his striking is improving fight to fight. So Goichi could throw himself right into the mix if he could take out Neiman Gracie at welterweight here. So we will see. But the hope for Gracie would be that he's able to turn him back and get rolling again because he had gotten pretty close to the top. And he wouldn't want to lose this one because that would be a fall for sure. So that's Bellator. We'll shift over to PFL very quick. PFL, we're on to the next playoffs, the new weight classes. This one is going to be the heavyweight semifinals and the welterweight semifinals. The heavyweight is the lesser of the marquee. You've got Denis Goltsov against Mateusz Scheffel. Scheffel was a late replacement for Bruno Capolosa here, who he did beat actually in the regular season, so it's not the craziest thing in the world. I don't think he's going to have much for Goltsov. Goltsov's a big favorite. I think he probably gets the finish. I think he marches into the heavyweight final. And he'll welcome from the other semifinal the winner of Ante Delia and Renan Ferreira. That is basically a pick'em fight, really close fight. I think that'll probably be a striking contest. Ferreira, guy who might look to get Delia out of there early if Delia can survive, may swing his way, but that's a close one. That'll probably be an entertaining fight. And then we get to the welterweights, which is where more of the focus is. First one, you have Carlos Leal, who debuted in the PFL this year against Ray Cooper III. And he decimated what was basically like the corpse of Ray Cooper. So it's very hard to tell what he is. And then at the same time, Sadabusi is a guy who's never quite broken through in his career, and now he just suddenly is coming off a win over Rory McDonald, who almost same deal. We're not exactly sure what Rory McDonald is. So it's tough to evaluate just how good either of these guys are at the moment, specifically the Leal one, because, to me, I look at it, I'm like, he dominated Ray Cooper, and I rate Ray Cooper highly. So I want to pick him here, but Ray Cooper just looked so not even remotely close to himself that it's hard to tell, and you can tell Vegas feels the same way because this is a pick'em. It's dead even odds. Leal is not even favored after that performance. So didn't see.
Ray Cooper murder somebody in his very next fight?
Yeah, and looked like himself, fought like himself, came back and immediately murdered. So who knows? But we're going to find out what Carlos Leal is here. Obviously, if he walks through Sadabusi, we realize this man is the real deal. So that's one. The other welterweight semifinal is the aforementioned Rory McDonald. He's a big dog against Magomed Umalatov. I got to be honest, I haven't seen Umalatov much. I only saw his last fight. He's a guy who can do it all. Rory's plus 240 here as the dog. Umalatov is minus 320, which is wild to see for Rory. We have not seen that. But he doesn't look great. He's almost in that same Pettis vein we were just mentioning where it's getting a little harder to have confidence in him. I really did not like what I saw against Sadabusi. He wouldn't even try to fight him. He just kept shooting for takedown after takedown that was failing. It's tough to trust Rory right now. I think he probably gets beat here if you're making the smart pick, but we will see. Maybe he surprises us and thrusts himself into the final.
Yeah.
And that is it for the Bellator and PFL, and we can move on to the little bit more sizzling UFC card. Not a lot more sizzling, to be honest, but at least the main event is.
Just a smidge more sizzle.
All right, let us move on to UFC Fight Night Vera versus Cruz. Before we get into, we're only going to talk about, I believe, 5 of the bouts from this Fight Night card. Before we get into any of those, any other fights or fighters that you guys want to spotlight for our viewers and listeners?
Omar started off.
Yeah, so the boy Gabriel Benitez is on the card. If you guys have listened to this podcast for quite some time, you know I have a soft spot for the kids from tough Latin America. Gabriel Benitez is one of those guys. The tenacity from all of those dudes is just out of control. It doesn't even matter whether they win or lose. It's just those guys never not fight. And so I love every minute of it, whether they win or lose. Benitez will definitely be bringing it. So hopefully he ends up with a W. He's had some ups and downs lately, but, you know, I'm always Team Benitez. So that's what that is. Other one on the card, Ode Osborne versus Tyson Nam. I would 100% make sure you watch that fight. Not really sure how that fight's going to go. I think on paper, Ode probably should be winning that fight, but the reality is both of those dudes can crack. That fight is probably going to be violence from bell to bell. If there is a second bell, I would make sure you don't miss that fight at all.
Yeah.
Mark, any other names?
Yeah, I love that fight too. I'll point out Devin Clark versus Azamat Murzakanov. Obviously, that's on the main card, but we're not going to talk about it here in our true breakdowns. Murzakanov came in with some hype to the UFC. He did not impress in his debut until the moment that he got the finish of Tafon Nchukwi. Maybe it was a bit of first fight jitters. We'll see how he looks here. He's favored to beat Clark, but Clark has shown how tough he is. He's had some quality wins, so we'll see how Murzakanov looks in that one. The UFC obviously trying to spotlight him a little bit, having that one as high up on the card as it is. And then I'll just mention an oddity, which is that the UFC apparently does not care about steroids anymore, because there are two guys debuting on this card who fought in the Contender Series. One popped for steroids, and the UFC was like, well, come on down anyway. So Josh Quinlan is debuting against Jason Witt, and I'm going to say Lukasz Brzeski is debuting against Martin Boudet. So couldn't believe that myself when I was reading it, but yeah, I guess we don't care about steroids anymore.
Shall we begin?
We shall.
Let's do it.
Going down in the women's strawweight division, but at a catch weight of 120 pounds, we have Angela Overkill Hill taking on Lupita Godinez, excuse me. She's Mexican, not Brazilian. I always forget that. I'm just so used to the Brazilians in this sport. It just messes me up with so many other fighters' names.
Fair.
So we have Angela Hill, my girl from New York City. Started out Muay Thai, Friday Night Fights, same promotion that I got my start as a ring announcer. She is 37 years old, from San Diego, California, 13-12 as a pro. She's coming off of 3 straight losses against Tesha Torres, Amanda Lemos, and Virna Janjiroba. Lupita Godinez from Aguascalientes, Mexico, 28-year-old, so the junior fighter, 8-2 as a pro, coming off back-to-back wins. Omar, let me throw it over to you first this time. Godinez versus Hill, what's your take?
I just have to mention, that's a dope fucking place to be from. Aguascalientes. It means hot water.
Yeah, man.
But it sounds dope in Spanish, man. That's a dope name. Yeah, Angela Hill, Lupita Godinez. I'm such a big Angela Hill fan. The girl's basically got a 50-50 win-loss rate at this point, but there's just always going to be a soft spot for Angela Hill in my heart. I know a majority of us have had real issues with some of the losses she's had when it comes to decisions. You know, she's like almost the queen of decisions and split decisions at this point. But I don't know, man. I really still love Angela Hill. I do think she has decent technique. I think the problem is sometimes she doesn't always bring it out. Sometimes she's not always 100% in her delivery of it. And I think against people who are 100% all the time, she ends up lacking in those moments where she needs to be over the top and kind of needs to win those moments in those rounds. I believe, however, that Lupita Godinez isn't necessarily that person, though, that's really going to put the squeeze on Angela Hill in that specific sense. She's had a couple of decent wins. They're not against anybody who's of any kind of consequence. It's not like her resume is full of people who, if you look on Angela Hill's resume, is full of real fighters, tested, true, through the fire. Angela Hill, win or lose, has generally put up a really good fight against most of these women. I would argue probably her last performance was probably the one where she got chewed up the most in recent memory. But I do think that Lupita Godinez presents a good challenge for her. I do think she's able to win this fight. I'm going to go very, very haphazardly with Angela Hill by some decision.
Mark, hit us.
Okay. Angie is a big dog. She's plus 270. Luque is minus 340.
Come on.
It's maybe a bit aggressive. But unfortunately, I am going with Lupita Godinez here. I mean, I also like Lupe. I like Lupita Godinez a lot, actually. I just mean, unfortunately, because we're all fans of Angela Hill, and things aren't going great for her lately. But I think it continues. Maybe a couple fights ago, I would have said, like, all right, this is a way for Angie to get on track. But Lupe has looked so good her last two fights, specifically the last fight against Ariane Carnelossi. In that fight, she looked like she could have been like the friggin' champion. She was incredible in that fight. So she's making big strides. Her wrestling is going to present a lot of problems for Angie, I think. If Hill ever could keep her off of her, obviously the fight changes. But Lupe's so tough, she'll press forward. And I don't know if Angie presents enough danger to keep Lupe off of her and keep her from walking forward. So I think she can implement her game, and I'm going to say she wins the decision.
Let's go Angela Hill. I'm going to ride or die with Angela Hill. Amen. Until she, puts those gloves on the mat, man. I'm going to go Angela Hill. I like the Angela Hill by decision pick. I'm going to say she has got to be the beneficiary of these decisions every now and then. God damn it. Muay Thai for life.
Me and Mike are just going to walk Angela Hill off the fucking cliff. If she goes, bro, we all go.
That's right, man. That's right. What do we have next? Calvillo versus Nunes. Let me find this in my little cheat sheet here. Here we go. The women's flyweight division, Cynthia Calvillo taking on Nina Nunes, the Lady Lioness. Does that make sense? It really doesn't. That's okay.
No.
So we have Cynthia Calvillo from San Jose, California. She's a 35-year-old, 9-4 as a pro with one draw, coming off 3 straight losses. Nina Nunes, wife to now once again champ Amanda Nunes. Nina, what's her nickname? The Strina?
What? Strina.
That's what Sherdog says. Nina the Strina? What the hell is that?
Strina means aunt or father's sister-in-law.
In Portuguese?
Serbian Croatian.
Oh, is she Serbian Croatian? She's from Fort Lauderdale. Like, what the hell? What was her maiden name before Nunes? She took Nunes?
Ansarov.
That's right. Nina Ansarov. Okay, Ansarov, Nina Nunes, coming off of back-to-back losses as well against Tatiana Suarez and Mackenzie Dern. So both of these ladies are looking to get back in the win column. It's a great matchup, attribute-wise, record-wise. Nunes is 10-7, 36 years old, so they're close in age, close in records, and close in skill sets. Mark, let me start with you this time. What's your take and your pick of Calvillo versus Nina Nunes?
I'm so occupied in trying to Google why she's named Estrina that I can't even focus. Okay. The favorite here is Calvillo. She's minus 175. Nina Nunes, Estrina, is plus 145. This is really hard to pick because we haven't seen either of them in a while, especially Nunes. Calvillo has looked really shaky lately. So it's really hard to confidently go without either one of these girls. Neither has done anything encouraging in a while, but they are both former flyweights. So Calvillo, former strawweight, excuse me. So Calvillo, who had moved up to flyweight, fighting bigger girls, doesn't have to deal with a natural bigger fighter here as she has in her other recent fights. This is going to hinge on how often Cynthia can take Nina down and how long she can hold her down. But I keep thinking about Claudia Gadelha and the struggles that she had holding Nina down. So I want to say that Nina can do enough to keep this standing more often than not and to win this thing on the feet and pull away on the cards that way. It's just that we haven't seen her in so long that we don't know what she's going to look like. So it's tough to bank on it. I wouldn't say bet on it, but give me Nina Nunes to win a decision.
Omar.
Yeah, I would also go with Nina Nunes to win a decision as well. I haven't had a lot of confidence in Cynthia Calvillo for quite some time. I thought it would be, when she went up to 135 because of all the weight issues, I was like, this is not the weight class for her. Goes down to 125, still not the weight class for her. I think earlier on in her career, I thought she had a lot of potential, especially with the way that she fights. She's a very aggressive fighter, but the reality is there's a lot of people when she gets outskilled and outstrengthened, somebody who's stronger than her, essentially, she runs into a big, big wall that she cannot get around. And I think she's going to run into that with Nina Nunes. I think she's better overall. I think the quality of trading that Nina Nunes probably gets with the champ has got to be, something very extra that a lot of people aren't getting. Cynthia trains with a great camp. I believe she's still training with Team Alpha Male, if I'm not mistaken. But I still think that Nina Nunes is getting something different, kind of working with Amanda Nunes. So I'm going to go with Nina Nunes by decision.
That makes all three. I like Nunes a lot in this matchup. I've never been a big Calvillo fan. And I've actually always liked Nina Nunes, as well as Nina
Ansaroff.
Mm-hmm. I was like, she's good. She's pretty good. I'll go her by decision. Why not? I think we're unanimous in our unanimous decision choices. Okay, let's move on. Let's see how close to the hour we can get out of here. Let's see, guys. Let's see. In the middleweight bout, we have Bruno Blindado Silva. Who knows what that Brazilian nickname is? Mark, look it up.
Strina. I already gave up on Strina.
So Bruno Silva taking on Gerald Meerschaert. Is it Meerschaert?
Yep.
God damn it. Is Meerschaert, not Meerschaert.
They say it both ways, honestly.
GM3.
I hear it both ways on the broadcast.
I do? Whew. Okay. Call him GM3 versus Blindado.
Side note, Blindado means protected by armor. The armored one.
Oh, really?
Sounds good.
I just pulled it up and it means tank, which I guess sort of is similar.
Oh, that's not what I saw at all.
So Bruno Silva was 3-0 in the UFC until he ran into a man named Alex Pereira. And he also was, I believe, riding a 7-fight win streak as a pro before he ran into Pereira. Meerschaert, he also was looking good. He won 3 straight until he ran into Krzysztof Jotko. Excuse me, I'm sorry. He got one punched by Khamzat Chimaev, which was sort of the defining moment of his career. But until then, he's pieced it back together. He's won 3 straight, and he just lost to Krzysztof Jotko. So he's looking to get back in the win column. Both these guys are looking to get back in the win column. Mark, let me start with you. What is your take on Bruno Silva versus Gerald Meerschaert?
I like this fight. Bruno Silva's a big favorite. He's minus 300. Meerschaert is plus 240 as the dog. I'm on Bruno Silva. He is one of these guys that I think is going to break through and just hasn't yet to this point. I wanted to come in and tell people to bet Silva because I thought there was value there, but I guess Vegas sees that too because he's 3-1, which I didn't expect. I trust his ground game enough to not get caught by Meerschaert in a scramble or anything like that. And I think he can hurt Meerschaert badly on the feet. I think this is a guy who legitimately hung with Alex Pereira. He's proven in prior fights how dangerous his striking can be. I think that he can finish off GM3. I will say round 2 TKO for Bruno Silva.
Okay, Omar.
I'm I am not a huge fan. So Meerschaert's game concerns me because I've said it before. It's like Paul Craig's game, but not as efficient. He's had some nice finishes as of recent, but I don't trust the consistency in that game plan. I'm starting to not trust it as much with Paul Craig either, as far as we're concerned. But I think Bruno Silva is just a little bit better overall. You know, I don't know if we'd call him a specialist the way that Meerschaert would probably be called specialist. But I think Bruno Silva is competent enough to not get caught in anything stupid. And I do think that his power presents a really big issue for GM3 because we have seen him fold to people who have real power in their hands. So I'm going to go with Bruno Silva. I think it takes him a little bit, but I think he gets it done by knockout. I'm going to go with round 2.
I think this is a tough fight because I think GM3 is a pretty talented guy. What I count a lot is the fact that Bruno Silva went the distance with a guy as talented as Alex Pereira and gave Pereira as hard of a time as he did. So I'm going to go Bruno Silva by unanimous decision after 3 rounds. But I think it's going to be a good fight. I hope it's a good fight. I think it will be for Meerschaert's sake.
Mike, are you hearing Omar sketchy, or is it just me? Is he coming through clear for you?
I'm hearing you sketchy.
Oh, really? Wow. I hope we're all coming through clear on the
Omar's clear for me and you're sketchy. Am I still sketchy?
You're good for me and Omar's sketchy for me. Omar, what are we both for you?
Mark,
So, Mark, you're a little sketchy. Mike sounds good. But the fact that you're sketchy and I sound sketchy for you makes me feel like we'll be okay in the end.
All right. I hope. Let's finish this baby out.
That's it. We got to build a fucking studio somewhere and just fucking meet up in the middle.
I'm not going to cut
in
this part out.
like Pennsylvania or some shit.
I'm not cutting this part out so you guys could see the difficulty we put ourselves through for your benefit.
See the shit we do for you, people.
You and your MMA
all
news
good.
is...
All right, let's hop up into this co-main. Fun co-main. Kind of a funny that it's in the co-main, but it's a fun fight. We have Landwehr, Nate the Train Landwehr taking on David Onama, the Silent Assassin. I do like this fight. These are 2 exciting guys. So we have Landwehr from Tennessee. He is 34 years old. He's coming off of a win against Ludovic Klein. He's 15-4 as a pro with 8 knockouts to his name. David Onama from Kansas City, Mo, coming off back-to-back wins. He is now 2-1 in the UFC, coming off a win against Garrett Armfield back in July of this very year. So he fought very recently. He fought only about a month ago. I mentioned he's 28 years old, so he's the younger fighter. This is going to be a scrap, guys. Omar, what's your take?
Dude, it's so hard to say, man. Onama has been such a guy with a lot of potential, a lot of hype behind his name. He's been delivering in the UFC. He had that one little skid when he first came in, but that was a decision.
Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, he's 10-1 as a pro. Then that one was his first UFC fight.
Right. And so right after that, he's basically just destroyed the next 2 people that he's fought. One of them being my boy Gabriel Benitez. Ran smack dab into a punch. But the reality is Onama had a lot of good potential to his name. And against somebody like Nate Landwehr, Nate Landwehr is a decent fighter. You know, he's not the most exciting fighter in the world. He's not the best fighter in the world, but he's definitely effective. His last fight against Ludovic Klein, Ludovic Klein is not a slouch by any stretch of the imagination, and he choked him out. Got him caught real nice in an anaconda choke. That word is going to be difficult for me right now. But Onama presents a lot of problems, power being one of them. I don't know how that's really going to translate. I think Nate's going to really need to take it to the ground. And if Onama can't keep it off the ground, he's going to run into some problems, I would imagine. I have confidence that Onama will be able to get it done. I'm going to go with Onama by decision.
Okay. Mark?
Yeah, so this was supposed to be Zubaira Tukhugov and Nate Landwehr. Onama is stepping in on short notice. That's why he fought so recently and is kind of back here. Not terribly short notice. I think that was like 2-3 weeks ago that was announced. But he is a pretty big favorite. He's minus 290, and Nate is plus 230. You touched on it. This makes 0 sense to me as a co-main event. There's higher level fights on this card, but not only that, the UFC's got to at least give us 2 big fights. Like, there's got to be a better co-main on cards than this. And I like this fight, but it's just not a co-main. We got to have another higher level fight than this. But anyway, I get off track. I like David Onama a lot. I think he's shown signs of maybe not having it all come together just yet at times, but you can see the skills really clearly. This is going to be a tricky one. Nate Landwehr is tough. He is tricky in himself. He's a guy who's going to make you work. He's going to make it ugly. He's going to have the crowd. He's like one of those guys that feeds off the crowd. It's going to be a tough task for David Onama. I'm going to say he gets it done. I think maybe he's losing, maybe even most of it for, like, say, a round and a half, and then I'll say he lands something big, fight changes, puts Nate away. So I will say round 2 TKO for David Onama. I think the speed of Onama is going to end up being a big factor.
I like your take, Mark. I'm on the verge of saying Onama's going to get his first win by decision, but fuck it. Let's say he gets a 3rd round knockout, because I think Landwehr is clearly the best guy that he's ever fought. And Landwehr is no slouch, but I think Onama, with his incredible finish rate being 100%, he's never won a fight by decision. Let's say he gets one more before he steps up into even tougher competition. I'm going to go Onama by knockout, or TKO rather, in round 3.
Like it.
All right, let's hop up now into this main event of this UFC Fight Night. Awesome fight in the bantamweight division in the UFC. Marlon Chito Vera taking on Dominick the Dominator Cruz. Both of these guys are absolute killers. Dominick Cruz is really a legend in the sport. Chito Vera, if he's not a legend, he's really getting closer and closer to being a pretty high status in most UFC purists' eyes. Chito Vera from Ecuador, of course, 29 years old. He's 19-7-1 as a pro. Let's see. He's coming off 3 straight wins over Davey Grant, Frankie Edgar, and Rob Font. Let's see. Dominick Cruz. I mean, what else is there to say about this guy? 24-3 as a professional from San Diego, California. He's only 36. I honestly thought he would have been older than 36, but he's got a lot of miles on that body and on those feet, which he's always had foot problems, especially as of late. Dominick Cruz coming off back-to-back wins over Casey Kenny and Pedro Munoz. This is a fun fight at bantamweight, man. Omar, let me throw it over to you first this time. Give us your take and ultimately your pick of Chito Vera versus Dominick Cruz.
I love Chito Vera. Another one of those guys I've had a soft spot for since tough Latin America. For those of you who aren't aware, Marlon Vera won his fight in tough Latin America and actually had to pull out of the remaining contest or show or whatever due to a skin infection. So he didn't actually lose that season. He was simply removed from playing because he had an issue. Contagious one, apparently, at that. So that should be mentioned. The man is top tier. He has definitely had to work his way up. He had to move up the ladder. His skills have vastly improved from what he was at in Latin America Ultimate Fighter. That was also during a time where that man was basically fighting for scraps. He was doing that very, very raw. And now he's got the money. He's got flexibility. He's working with some of the best coaches around. Jason Priaulx is now his striking coach, working with guys like Luke Rockhold and the like. I mean, that's steel sharpens steel. And I think we really saw the benefits and the gains of his training and his journey in his last fight against Rob Font. And while Rob Font, unfortunately, has a reputation as of late of taking a lot of shots and not necessarily being the best when it comes to dealing with power, Chito really put it on him. And he put it on him for 5 rounds, and he really beat him down. And I thought it was a beautiful performance. And I thought it was one of those types of performances where we saw that Chito, I think, was on a different level. And I'm glad that he's getting a Dominick Cruz fight at this point, because Dominick Cruz, I think, has always been on a different level and has consistently been so, even throughout all of his injuries and layoffs and coming back and this and the other. And while he's still, he's had a loss here and there, he's still shown that he belongs at the top of the pack. And so I think Chito is going to be able to take this fight and really do something with it. I don't think that Dominick Cruz is going to be able to deal with the power. I think the movement will work very early on in the fight, but I do think Chito is smart enough and has fantastic fight IQ that he'll be able to adjust to it. And I don't think that Dominick presents a lot of difficult avenues that Chito wouldn't be able to deal with. So I'm going to go with Chito. I don't know if he knocks out Dominick Cruz, but goddamn, wouldn't that be a feather in his cap? I'm going to go with Chito by decision.
Okay, Omar, Chito by decision. Mark, give us your take and ultimately your pick of this marquee bantamweight fight.
I hope we're all coming through clear for this one, at least, for the people, because this is a big fight. Marlon is the favorite. He is minus 230. Dominick Cruz is plus 190. I love this fight. I really do. I love this run that Dominick Cruz has been on. I'm so impressed by it that he's still this good, this deep into his career after all these injuries. It's honestly incredible. But I am with Omar. I think it ends here. I just think Marlon is too patient and too violent for Cruz's game to work against. Cruz, Omar made this point too, and I agree. I think Cruz may jump out in front and win a round or two while Marlon kind of calculates things, gets his reads, gets his angles. But I think in that time he'll be investing in the legs, investing to the body. I think he'll start to slow Dom down a little bit as the fight goes on. And I think he'll start to find bigger and bigger shots as the fight goes on. And frankly, as good as Dom is, I just don't think that he has the power threat needed to keep Chito off him. And the longer the fight goes, I think we're going to see that more and more. Like, see, a guy like Aldo, who managed to beat Chito, it was because of that. It was because he was able to keep Chito honest, and Chito couldn't, like, eat like he wants to. I don't think Cruz can do that. Even if this fight hits the ground, which Cruz absolutely may opt to do, depending how things are going, I trust Chito down there. I think he'll do fine. I can even see him reverse some positions. Like, he's underrated on the ground, and he's slick with his subs, too. And he's a large human. Yep. Like, they're the same height, but I think mass for mass, Chito's going to look big in there, personally. I think he always tends to. He's a big guy in that division. He'll have a 2.5-inch reach, which is not huge, but it's not nothing. I think there's a lot that's going to play into this. I think as the fight goes on, it starts to swing Chito's way, and I think he gets it done, and I'm going to say he even gets Dom out of there. I was torn on it, but I'm going to say late fourth round, big shot, Cruz trying to survive, moving around, another shot, jumps on him, more, fight gets called, fourth round TKO, Chito Vera.
God damn it, Mark.
Before you get into it, Mike, I also want to mention...
That was my pick, Mark. I already wrote it down. I wrote it down like 4 hours ago.
I want to mention...
Sorry, Omar. Go ahead.
I want to mention that Dominick Cruz, especially as of late in his last run, right? Like, since being back off of his more recent injury. So, from the Cody Garbrandt fight all the way... Actually, even the Uriah Faber fight and the TJ Dillashaw fight. Like, all of those fights, he's seemed to be more hittable than usual. Like, even almost progressively so. And even in the Pedro Munoz fight, like, he gets tagged. Won that fight, but gets tagged. Chito Vera is the one that will put him out if he allows himself to get tagged. Dominick Cruz has continuously had a game where he needs to essentially be perfect in order to win these fights and not get hurt. He needs to constantly be moving. He needs to constantly be changing angles and getting out of the way, ducking and dodging. And the reality is the older he gets, the faster he's not going to be. And if he fucks up at any point in that fight, Chito will make him pay for it. And like Mark said, if you go back and you watch that Aldo Vera fight, you'll see that it's basically the both of them throwing brick walls at each other and seeing which one could go through. And Aldo won that war.
Yeah.
Dominick Cruz will literally break both of his hands before he's able to do that to Chito Vera. And so I wholeheartedly believe Chito is just going to be too difficult for Dom to put away. Dom has a championship mentality. It's very possible he finds some kind of avenue, but it won't be pretty, and it will not be dominant. I can tell you those two things for a fact.
So you guys know my pick already because of my outburst. I apologize.
We're allowed to have the same pick, Mike. Okay.
I really felt like, yeah, you're right. I feel like Cody Garbrandt. I mean, his fight with Cruz was the absolute pinnacle of Garbrandt's career, and unfortunately, he hasn't really returned to that form since. But that was a masterpiece, and I thought that in that fight that took place back in 2016, I thought it kind of exposed Dominick Cruz during this comeback of like, oh, Dominick Cruz, he just doesn't have the power anymore. He still has the movement, which he always had, but now he's lost a little bit of his power, and he just doesn't pose a threat to these guys. And I feel like Garbrandt knew it. Cejudo knew it. Cejudo put him away. Of course, that was the infamous Keith Peterson smells like cigarettes and booze. He was upset with Keith Peterson for stepping in and giving Cejudo the TKO. Then he comes back, he beats Casey Kenny, and then he beats Pedro Munoz. And to Omar's point, yeah, he got touched by Pedro Munoz, and Munoz has power. But ever since that Garbrandt fight, I've always in my head been like, Cruz is kind of done at bantamweight. And I don't think he's going to cut to 125 or anything like that. He's certainly not going to go up. But he still has the movement, which is why I think he's not going to get finished by Cheeto in like the first. So I put down 4th round TKO. I think Cheeto's going to hurt him, and eventually it's going to accumulate. I think he's going to swarm him and get him out of there. And I said 4th round TKO. Whoever the ref is will probably smell like booze and cigarettes, but it's going to be a technical knockout victory for Chito Vera in the 4th round. I think Cruz is going to stay away enough, and he's going to do his movement thing, which I love him for. I love all the fighters who bring in sort of a unique look to the fight game, and Dominick Cruz has done that. He's a one of a kind, and a legend at that.
You can't
but yeah,
forget.
man, I'm going Cheeto.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut off your man.
That's it. I'm done.
I was just going to say, you can't forget, by the second half of that Pedro Munoz fight, Pedro Munoz could not figure out how to touch him. Like, he caught him early, and then Dom settled in, and Pedro Munoz was hitting a ton of air. So, you never know how these things go. I mean, Dom does what he does, but I don't think it's going to happen this time, but we'll see.
As hard-hitting as Pedro Munoz is, the way he throws his shots are very different from how Cheeto throws them. And Cheeto throws those shots much quicker, with a lot less effort, and they are just as strong. And so I'm telling you, man, if he gets tagged the same way that he got tagged by Pedro Munoz by Chito Vera, that's night-night.
Yep.
We might see Dominick Cruz snoring.
You're right, I agree. I think I do think that Pedro Munoz, he loads up a bit because he throws some power shots. Cheeto's, I think, is quite a bit more technical. But that's it, boys. That's a wrap on our UFC Fight Night
fucking hope people
preview.
Hear what we were saying.
Oh my God! Let's end with a little bit of trivia. Here we go. I'm gonna get this out of here quick. This past weekend, we were treated to an entire card of finishes, including a main event light heavyweight finish that ended in a TKO. What light heavyweight fighter has the record for the most knockout/TKO wins at light heavyweight? Is it A, John Jones, B, Vitor Belfort, C, Randy Couture, or D, Chuck Liddell?
This is very hard because two of those guys fought at 2 weight classes, and I don't know which knockouts were freaking at light heavyweight or not.
I know.
Couture's got heavyweight. Vitor's got middleweight. So you said the most knockouts or TKOs? Is that what you said?
Most knockouts/TKOs. So not subs, just knockouts/TKOs.
For Liddell?
205 pounds in the UFC.
Bones, Vitor, Couture.
So
Liddell.
not... I'm helping you too much. This is just UFC.
Yeah. I'll say Chuck.
Omar.
Why the fuck do I want to say John Jones?
This is a good question. This is a
I'm
good
gonna
question.
go with John Jones.
I'm proud of myself. This is a good question. Okay. Randy Couture, not close.
Figured that.
John Jones, also not close. Sorry, Omar.
I was
If
between
Vitor fought his whole career at
so I'm
205,
not surprised these are who we're down to.
if Vitor fought his whole career at 205, he would have crushed this list. Because Vitor knocked out everybody. And especially in the young days when he was like fighting on UFC 40 or whatever. He was crushing everybody. But a lot of those were kind of all over them. He fought at heavyweight at first in the UFC. He's fought, and remember, at the latter half of his career, he cut down to middleweight, and he got a few more. So he was still close, but the answer is Chuck Liddell with 10 knockout/TKOs at 205 in the UFC.
Let's go, baby.
I believe I counted 5 for John Jones.
I was trying to remember,
But he also had a few subs, which I'm not
I
counting
was
in this
thinking
question.
about like where, because I was literally starting from the bottom of the list. You got Brandon Vera, you got Matashenko, and like I was trying to go up the list there, and I was like, there's quite a few in there. Like I wonder if it's John Jones,
Yeah,
Shogun.
yeah.
Shogun.
Yeah,
Yeah, he
the
took
problem,
out Shogun.
The
He
problem
subbed
is then
Machida.
you like get one more and it stops. It's no more.
Yeah.
It becomes a million decisions. A couple subs.
Yeah, that's a lot of decisions for Jones.
Well, actually, Gus. He KOs Gus.
All right, boys. Well, due to technical difficulties, guys, we Mark, you were going to say
Oh,
something?
I was just gonna say, I had to pick Liddell because he only won fights one way. So all his wins were knockouts.
It's true. Well, folks, due to our technical difficulties earlier in the evening, we had a pretty late start, so it's a pretty late finish. So we are going to get out of here, but thank you for sticking with us. Find us on all those social medias. Hit us up. Drop a comment below. Let us know if you agree or disagree with any of our takes and who you picked for the trivia question. That being said, guys, enjoy the fights, and we'll see you next week. Boys, any parting shots?
Yeah, I'm going to bed.
That's this shot. Check me out on
Yeah.
UFC Fight Pass Friday night. Anthony Pettis Fighting Championship in 48 hours.
That's
Let's
the
go.
party shot, baby.
Let's do it.
Yeah, man. All right, folks. We'll see you next week.
Peace.
Peace.